have two folks here to present to us. Lisa Adolphson from Environmental Science Associates, and Donald Hewling from HWA Geosciences.
Margaret, may I ask, this is Daryl speaking, may I ask if it's possible if we decide as a PAT team to extend and have extra meetings, is this an appropriate time to talk about that at the end of this meeting?
Maybe at the end of the meeting, but let me kind of get through this process stuff here, and then we can talk about it. There is a time slot called any remaining comments or questions. So we do have time at the end to do that, Daryl.
Okay, thanks.
At any rate, you'll remember a couple of meetings ago, we there was some concerns about the environmental work that had been done previously related to the green space, with a number of you feeling like that it hadn't been adequate. And so Parks contracted with Environmental Science Associates and HWA Geosciences to do another review of environmental conditions in the Chiste green space. Preliminary, more work would have to be done for the pilot project in advance of that, but at least another look and another analysis of what's there and what the environmental conditions are. And so tonight we're really focused on what that report says, what they've found, and recommendations that those two firms have back to the Parks Department relating to environmental issues. So that's where we want to put most of our attention tonight. We're going to give them time to do a presentation, and then we have time for your comments and questions and discussion after that. Our last meeting is on February 19th. On the 19th, we're going to have a little bit different format because that's also going to be a public meeting. So we'll have a presentation, and there's likely, I'm going to let Doug get into the details of this, but likely to be some adjustmts, for example, to the design based on the environmental analysis, etc. So we want to do another kind of look-see at the design scheme. And then I think probably have the public meeting before the PAT meeting, or have a similar level of folks commenting and giving their questions and comments related to the project to all of you, so you can benefit from that. And then I'll be doing a little bit different format, which is individual polling to see what your recommendation is to the Parks Department related to the pilot project. So more details about that at the end of the meeting, and more to come in the next 3 weeks. But just want you to know that that's the direction that we're headed at this point.
Margaret, I just have a, is this on?
Yes.
Okay, so we're not going to come up with a consensus, is that right? So it's changed?
No, I would love it if we could get 100% consensus. That's never been in our charter.
Well, it was in the beginning. We did.
Well, the charter's written that 100% consensus is not mandatory. In other words, we're not going to lock you in a room and make you agree with each other until, for 2 weeks. It'd be great if we could get there, but what we're going to do is I want to poll all of you individually so we get all the opinions, see where we are, and then I'll do a little bit of a different reporting format because it'll be more in a recommendation format. So then I'll do a draft, give that to you, have you all comment on that, and then we'll give that to the Parks Department. So again, more detail about that later on in the meeting, but I just wanted you to know that that's where we're headed. Reminder to folks in the room, please be quiet during the deliberations of the PAT. We have extended the public comment time to 20 minutes. So there should be ample time for all of you to give your comments at the end, but please be quiet while we are deliberating up here. Clapping, yelling, hooting, etc. is not really helpful to the process. Everybody's been great so far. Just wanted to get that reminder in there. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Doug to talk about schedule and what's coming up.
Thank you, Margaret. I first talk about process here. Based on tonight's discussion, we're going to take that immediately back and work with the landscape architect to do any revisions that come out of this discussion and previous comments that have come to us. And then we're going to take that to an internal department review for feasibility, and that's really an internal process. That'll happen the first week in February. We're planning to have, if we can schedule everything and it works well, we're planning to have a site walk on the second week of February, and really just to lay this out in the field and see what this looks like out in the field, the approximate location of where this would go. And we'll put the information out to you as soon as we have a date and time on that so that you can be there with us. And then we, on the 5th PAT meeting, will be on February 19th at the Rainier Community Center. And that's the same time period from 6 to 9. And then outreach meeting number 2 at the Rainier Boys and Girls Club, that we're tentatively scheduled for the last week in February. We don't have specific times and dates yet. And we'll get that out to you as soon as we have that nailed down. Paula Hoff is working on that right now. Then we have a date for the park board of April 9th. And we've been scheduled on the agenda for April 9th for these recommendations. And then we're going to the city council in May. We do not have a specific date yet. We're going to go to the park board first, and then we'll get the council meeting scheduled. If everything goes through, we'll start the field work this summer, and the 3-year evaluation period will begin when the trail is completed. So that's our tentative process and schedule. There was one question that has come up that I wanted to address this evening about the rationale for separated lanes versus presenting multiple plans to you, or a plan with a combined lane configuration. And just to help you understand why it is that we're looking at this one specific plan. As a common theme, this group has really had 2 consensus items that have come forward. One is safety of the users, and second is the environmental protection that you're all concerned about on this project. The evaluation, what's important to note is that the evaluation criteria will go in tandem with the plan.
I'm sorry, Doug, could you
Oh.
could we slow down? Could you say that again? Because I don't remember in the minutes going, reaching a consensus. Can you repeat that, please?
The common theme
Okay.
that has come out from this path is that there's safety and environmental protection are important on this project. I don't know if anybody would disagree with that.
I'd like to disagree about that.
Okay. All right. So one person has disagreed about that. In general, the evaluation criteria will go in tandem with the plan as a safeguard to determine whether this will be successful or not. And in particular, the mountain bike trail. This is what we're evaluating, as to how this will impact the site. We're following the council's direction for a perimeter trail and avoiding the middle of the space. 2 plans were presented prior to bringing plans to the path. They were presented to parks. The plan with the combined mountain bike and pedestrian trail was presented to us, and it demonstrated several issues that we were concerned about. The width of the trail was a concern for us. It was 6 feet wide, and this posed a safety concern that we were concerned about. Secondly, the sections that ran cross slope required significant soil displacement and grading up to 15-foot wide sections, and if this would have proven problematic for both habitat loss and soil erosion, we were concerned about that. Thirdly, the conflict between bikes and pedestrians we felt were exacerbated in bringing those 2 trails side by side. Fourth, the surfacing for both types of trails is different. The gravel and mineral soil being the 2 types of surfacing, and this posed a significant maintenance problem for us as well. Fifth, the slope tolerances between the 2 uses are very different. Pedestrians can go much steeper, and mountain bikes need a less steep slope, therefore limiting the routes that were available to a combined trail. Sixth, abandoning the bike portion of the trail is much more challenging on a combined trail, whereas a separated lane allows us to abandon the bike trail if it's unsuccessful and can be restored much easier. Seventh, the controls are much easier to manage in a separate lane configuration. The trail crossings, the speed, the access, and direction or flow are much easier controlled in a separated lane configuration. And eight, the pedestrians have a much better experience in a separated configuration. It allows for interpretation and education elements as well. So for that reason, we did not bring a combined trail option to this group. These were issues that we had with parks that wouldn't be acceptable to parks, so we didn't consider it at this time.
May I ask for a printed copy of those 9 items, is that correct?
Sure.
8 items. Is there a way that we can distribute that to the PAT members?
Yep, we can send it out to you.
Great.
Okay, any questions for Doug before we move into the presentation?
I guess I'm just confused then as to, if the park decided that.
Use the microphone.
Sorry, so if the parks decided that, I thought that's part of what we were gonna do. I thought that was part of what, that's my question then.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Kathy. We, there was this, if we brought this to the group and the group deliberated it, I think the group would come to the same conclusion. We just didn't see any feasibility of a combined trail, especially on these steep slope areas. That was really problematic for us. And we wouldn't even consider accepting something like that or letting something like that go.
Okay, so, I mean, just so that I'm clear, so when we the public, really, it was a parks decision,
Yes.
a parks decision to look at the 2 trails. When you looked
Yes.
at the information, you picked.
That's correct. Yeah.
And just for clarification, I met with one of the heads of the Washington DNR, and they moved almost exclusively, they have moved exclusively to separated use where they're allowed to, precisely for those and many other, they've actually pulled users and both bicyclists, equestrians, and hikers, to their surprise, were very much in support of separated use, even though it meant less, in their case, it meant less acreage for each of those users. Because that's why they originally were at combined use, was because they thought it would maximize acreage. So they've exclusively gone to separated use as well for many of those reasons.
Thanks, Dan. Melanie?
Just one question. You mentioned some dates in the beginning. Could you, maybe when you send that out, tell us which ones we're supposed to or have the option to attend?
You have the option to attend them all, and we will get the dates out to you. Except for the insurance.
Thank you.
Connie and then Daryl, or Daryl, Connie, whatever. Connie?
Doug, you stated that this is the best use, and according to something you said about the council's directive, and if I understood it correctly, the council's directive is a matter of law, and so how did you decide how you're going to do the law as it was presented to you?
We were told about a perimeter loop trail, and we have 2 distinct uses on this trail, pedestrian and bicycle use. And so we interpreted that trail as trying to find the best accommodation for both of those uses, given that we're evaluating as a pilot project the use of mountain bikes in this space. So we're looking for as the best configuration for both uses. That's how we interpreted it.
But if I understood correctly, and my memory is good, I thought it was a single parameter use, multi-purpose trail.
And the trail that we're considering is a trail. It's a perimeter trail, and it has multi-uses on it. What we're finding is that if we what we found in the combined plan is that if we bring both mountain bike and pedestrian uses together, it poses both a safety problem as well as an environmental degradation problem with the and a maintenance problem for us. And so instead of a 6-foot wide trail, we're looking at a 4-foot and a 2-foot trail. It's going and flowing in the same perimeter loop. So
at any point in time, did you guys look and say, okay, the mountain bike is not going to work in here, or the usage is not going to work in here, and following the directions? I'm just trying to get my unexperienced knowledge of how you do this with the directive, the ordinance from the city.
So we have standards. We have mountain bike standards that are widely used, and we looked at those standards and what would be the best. And we also had a landscape architect working with us. What would be the best trail type for mountain bike use as well as pedestrian use on this system. We have several pedestrian trails in our green spaces already, so we're following that same standard for the pedestrian use. But in terms of mountain bike, this is a new thing for the use in these green spaces, and so what we're looking for is to minimize or reduce that impact of that mountain bike trail to the greatest degree possible. And we found, as we've been looking at the construction techniques and things that are required to and the slope gradations and other factors we have to consider, that a narrow mineral soil mountain bike trail is by far the least impactful of the options that we have.
I'll let it go.
Does that answer your question?
I'll let it go, because I don't want to get better. I understand what you said.
I do want to get into the environmental presentation. Daryl, did you have something?
No, I'd like to hear from the rest of the PAT. I'd like to hear from the rest of the PAT members how you feel about the ordinance put out by their council.
Well, I guess I would just say that whatever we come up with, the council has to approve this in the end. Is that correct? So I think if there's any significant problems with what we recommend, they'll just send us back to the drawing board and not approve it. So I'm not too concerned about. I think we're abiding by the intent of having a perimeter loop trail, and we've already kind of been through not having cross trails and so forth. And so I think that that's reasonable. The only question I had was whether or not the pedestrian trail would be ADA accessible.
Yeah, there are portions of the trail that will be.
Any other comments back to Daryl, or do we do the environmental stuff? We can come back to this. Yeah, Dan?
I was just going to say that I think that that what Philip said is absolutely correct, that obviously the city council, especially with the Parks District, will have that final say. I would also like to say, though, that on the flip side, the Park Board recently wrote a letter to City Council and the mayor that is encouraging them to go ahead with the original plan that they approved. So I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure from many directions, and I would appreciate it if we just focus on those two main issues that you personally disagreed with, that this should be environmentally and safety sound, but I think it seems that the majority of us do agree that those are our key criteria. So seeing as though this would be a safer and more environmentally sound approach, I would prefer to not entertain this combined use, because I don't think that that is a feasible option.
Real quickly. Yeah, Sarah.
Dan made reference to a letter from the Park Board to the Mayor and City Council, and I watched the Park Board tape, heard something like that might be coming out, but is there one, and could we get it? You know if that
Yes,
letter's been sent?
I think it's, I just, like today or yesterday or something. Yeah.
Because the discussion actually was around sending it to us, and I figured when it came, we'd see it, but I haven't seen anything, so I'd appreciate a copy.